In today's video, we're talking all about slow motion. Hi, my name's Elias Dell, and if you're new to the channel, I make vlogs, gear reviews, and tutorials just like the one you're watching right now. So if any of that sounds interesting, please consider subscribing. Yeah, so today we're talking about slow motion. We're going to be talking about why you would want it, how to do it, and how to edit it in Premiere Pro. So let's get started with that. So why would you want to record slow motion? Well, there's a lot of reasons. And everyone uses it for different reasons. A lot of people use slow motion for their B-roll just because it makes it look a little more cool, more epic, if you will. A lot of people like using slow motion for high action shots, such as sports or anything revolving action that you want to slow down to really emphasize the subject. Those are the reasons why you might want to use slow-mo. Now the question is, how do you do it? Well, the first thing is you got to consider your frame rate and your shutter speed. Now, most, if not all cameras nowadays can record at 1080p at 60 frames per second. Now, 60 frames per second is going to be like the minimum frame rate you need to record slow-mo, and anything above that, like 120 or 240, is just even better. So starting with that, you want to go ahead and set your camera to 1080p at 60 frames per second, or 4K if you can, and then you want to go into manual settings, and your shutter speed needs to be double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 60 frames a second, your shutter speed needs to be at 120 or 125, I think, because it doesn't go at 120 exactly, just roughly more than double your frame rate. So if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, you want to have your shutter speed at 240, 250-ish. And then of course, if you're doing 240, you want to have it around 480 or 500. Somewhere in that range. That's going to give you the best smoothness of the frames and the shutter speed, and it's just how cameras work. So now that you have your settings, you have, let's say for example, your 1080p at 60 frames a second, and your shutter speed is going to be at 125. Then you're going to go out, shoot a couple things. For me, I went out to the parking lot and recorded my brother on a skateboard and the one wheel. So that's what I'm going to be working with here on the computer in just a minute with a couple of clips. And then once you have all your clips, we're going to go ahead and jump into Premiere Pro, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so when you are on Premiere Pro, first thing you want to do is go ahead and set a new project. Then you can label it whatever you want it to be. For me, I'll do slow-mo video. Okay, and save that wherever. Let it load. Okay, once you're loaded in, I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-N. That's going to bring up my new sequence. Now I have a preset one here for 1080p, 24 frames a second. If you want, you can just go to, if you wanted to, you could just go to RA 1080p at 1080p, 24 frames a second. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and load that up. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and import some of our clips. Now I just have a couple of clips here, and we're going to load them in. When you import your clips, you're going to go in this project folder in the bottom left screen. Now from here, yours might look a little different from mine. That's because I have mine set to the list view. I think by default it's on either icon or the freeform, which will blow up the image so you kind of know what you're working with. But I suggest you click the live view button, and from there you can kind of see the clip titles, what format it's in, what the frame rate is, how long it is, and all that information. So what you want to do from there is take all of your 60 frames a second or 59.94 and highlight that, and then you're going to right click it and go to modify, go to interpret footage, and then from here you want to assume this frame rate at 23.976. Okay, you don't have to touch anything else, hit OK. And now it's going to change all those 60 frame per second clips into 23.976 or 24 frames per second. So to give you an example, I'm going to, actually that's a little too long. What's the shortest clip I have? 7 seconds. Okay, so this is going to be the shortest clip I have. Let me go ahead and import the original 60 frames a second and show you the difference. Okay, so this is going to be my regular 60 frame per second clip. I'm going to show you right now. Go ahead and listen also. Alright, nothing crazy. Now this is going to be the slow-mo version, and that's been modified to interpret the footage as 23.976 frames per second. And as you can tell, it's slower, and the audio is like slow-mo, and it's pulled apart. So that's essentially what we're doing here. We're bringing the 60 frames a second clip down to a 24, which will make it about half the speed, give or take a little more. And I mean, slow motion just looks cooler. Let me go and give you another sample clip here of actual action. So right here is going to be my brother. He's skateboarding in the parking lot. Again, this footage was originally recorded in 60 frames per second, and I have just interpreted it and modified it to 24. So let's go and roll that clip. Alright, so I mean, you can use this for any assortment of things. You can use it for like cooking stuff, action shots, weddings, and just to make it look cooler. I think anything, almost everything, looks significantly cooler in slow motion, no matter what it is. The biggest worry, I guess you'd have to say, is the only problem with slow-mo is audio is not super good. So, whereas you could watch this clip and everything's slow-mo and it looks cool, there's no like feel to it. So, what you could then do with any slow-mo clip is just mute that audio and then throw on some music. So if we were to throw some music on, this is what it would sound like. So, not a huge thing here. It's actually pretty easy to do slow-mo, and a lot of cameras nowadays will even give you a internal slow-mo. Like you record it on the camera, and then when you export it, it's automatically slow-mo. Something cool that the iPhone 11 does is you can record in 120 frames or 240 frames per second. The only problem is this like burst mode, so you don't have full control over what you want to slow down and speed up. It's just 5-second clip or something like that, and it's automatically slow-mo. I mean, it's a really good slow-mo, it's usable. It's just you don't have the creative control to control what you want slow mode and sped up and stuff like that. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I'm working on making a bunch of tutorials such as this and other Adobe softwares, as well as camera gear reviews. So if any of that sounds interesting, please consider subscribing, leave a like and a comment. If you have any questions, let me know. I will do my best to answer all of them down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.